My name is Amanda, and I just turned 32 last month. I built my life carefully climbing the corporate ladder to become a senior financial analyst at one of the top firms in Boston. 5 years ago, I married Michael, and we seemed like the perfect couple from the outside. But behind closed doors, financial tensions were growing. I never imagined a simple breakfast conversation about money would end with scalding coffee on my face and me walking away from my marriage forever. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and please hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to make a difficult decision to protect yourself. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Connecticut. My parents weren't wealthy, but they taught me the value of financial responsibility from an early age. I worked through high school and college, taking on extra jobs to pay my tuition, while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. After graduating with honors in finance, I landed an entry-level position at a prestigious firm and worked my way up over the next 6 years. Then I met Michael at a friend's dinner party. He was charming, attentive, and seemed to have his life together. He worked as a marketing executive for a local company and talked confidently about his career goals and financial stability. Our connection was immediate. He asked thoughtful questions about my work and seemed genuinely interested in my ambitions. Within 3 months, we were inseparable. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Michael showered me with attention and gifts. We took weekend trips to Vermont and Maine, dined at upscale restaurants, and attended Broadway shows in New York. When he proposed after just 8 months of dating, I was swept up in the romance of it all. Looking back, I realize I ignored how he always insisted on paying with credit cards rather than cash, and how he changed the subject whenever I brought up specific financial topics. Our wedding was beautiful but expensive. Michael pushed for the grand venue and top-tier vendors, assuring me he had savings set aside. I contributed a significant portion from my own savings, believing it was an investment in our future together. We moved into a spacious townhouse in a prestigious neighborhood, with a mortgage that stretched our combined budget. Still, I was happy, and believed we were building something special together. The first year of marriage was mostly blissful. We settled into domestic routines and talked about starting a family in the future. But small cracks began to appear. Credit card statements arrived with unexplained charges. Michael would dismiss them as work expenses that would be reimbursed. Sometimes those reimbursements materialized, but often they didn't. By our second anniversary, the pattern was becoming clearer. Michael would have unexpected financial emergencies. His car needed urgent repairs. His laptop died right before an important presentation. A colleague was in trouble, and he had lent money to help. Each time he would apologize for not discussing it with me, first promising better communication in the future, and each time I believed him. Then came the introduction of Jasmine, Michael's sister. She lived in Philadelphia but visited frequently. I had met her briefly at our wedding, but now she became a regular presence in our lives. The siblings were unusually close, finishing each other's sentences and sharing private jokes. Initially, I found it endearing, but that changed when the financial requests began. Jasmine was always between jobs or starting new business ventures that required capital. The first time Michael asked if we could loan her $3,000 for a retail opportunity, I agreed without hesitation. Family helps family, I thought. But the loan was never repaid and more requests followed. Jasmine needed money for rent, for car payments, for business supplies. Michael always advocated passionately on her behalf. Our first major argument about money happened when I discovered Michael had taken $5,000 from our joint savings account without discussing it with me. The money had gone to Jasmine for a supposed investment opportunity. When I confronted him, his reaction shocked me. His face reddened, his voice rose, and he pounded his fist on the counter. "She's my sister. Family comes first. You make plenty of money, so why are you being so selfish?" he shouted. I was stunned into silence. This wasn't the man I had married. But after a tense night of minimal communication, he apologized profusely. He brought flowers, prepared dinner, and promised it wouldn't happen again. He explained that he was just protective of his sister, who had struggled since their parents' divorce. I accepted his explanation and apology, believing that with better communication we could move forward. I suggested we establish clearer financial boundaries and regular budget meetings. He agreed enthusiastically. For a while, things improved. But looking back, I see that this was the beginning of a pattern, not an isolated incident. I was already rationalizing his behavior and hoping for change, rather than seeing the reality of our situation. The foundation of our marriage was beginning to crack, and I was too invested in our happily ever after narrative to notice. As our third year of marriage progressed, the financial demands from Michael and Jasmine increased in both frequency and amount. What started as occasional requests for loans became regular expectations of financial support. Jasmine would call with urgent needs, sometimes sobbing about potential eviction or medical bills. Michael always took these calls in private, emerging afterward with grim determination to help his sister, regardless of our own financial situation. Meanwhile, Michael's career began faltering. He missed out on a promotion he had been confident about, then was placed on probation for missing sales targets. His hours were reduced, and his commission checks shrank. Instead of acknowledging these challenges, he maintained an appearance of success, buying expensive clothes and taking business lunches at high-end restaurants. When I gently questioned these expenses, he became defensive and accused me of not supporting his professional image. With Michael's income decreasing, I became the primary breadwinner. My career was thriving with a significant promotion and salary increase, but our household expenses continued to outpace our income. Despite contributing less financially, Michael assumed more control over our budget. He suggested consolidating our accounts for simplicity, which seemed reasonable at the time. Gradually, he took over paying bills and managing investments, always with plausible explanations about his experience in financial planning from his business background. When I expressed concerns about our growing debt, or questioned certain expenses, Michael employed a range of manipulation tactics. He would appeal to my sense of family obligation, saying things like, "You don't understand because you're an only child. Siblings have special bonds and responsibilities to each other." Or, he would compare our situation to others, pointing out friends who were more generous with their extended families. Sometimes he would minimize my concerns, calling me anxious or overly cautious. Other times he would promise things would improve once his next big marketing project succeeded or Jasmine's business took off. My attempts to establish financial boundaries were met with increasing resistance. When I suggested separate personal accounts, in addition to our joint account, Michael accused me of not trusting him. When I proposed a monthly limit on family support, he called me cold and unfeeling. One night after I declined to co-finance a car for Jasmine, he didn't speak to me for 3 days, creating an atmosphere of tension and silent punishment that only lifted when I relented. During a weekend visit, I met Michael's parents for dinner. Throughout the evening, they praised their son's generosity toward his sister, making pointed comments about how money should never come between family. His mother told stories about how Michael had always protected and provided for Jasmine since childhood. The message was clear: supporting Jasmine unconditionally was expected and praiseworthy. Later, Michael revealed that he had shared our financial disagreements with them, presenting me as materialistic and unsupportive. I felt betrayed and further isolated. This isolation increased as Michael subtly discouraged my relationships with friends and family. He would point out perceived slights from my closest friend Rachel, suggesting she was jealous of our lifestyle. He found reasons to skip visits to my parents, then acted hurt when I went without him. Work dinners with colleagues were met with passive-aggressive comments about my priorities. Gradually, I found myself pulling away from my support network to avoid conflict at home. Our once warm home environment deteriorated. I developed anxiety about checking the mail or answering the phone, fearing another bill or request from Jasmine. I lost sleep worrying about our financial future and walked on eggshells around money discussions. My stomach knotted every time Jasmine's name appeared on Michael's phone screen. Yet even as these problems grew, I struggled to name what was happening. Financial abuse wasn't a term I was familiar with, and emotional manipulation can be difficult to identify when it increases gradually. Jasmine's approach also changed. Rather than always working through her brother, she began contacting me directly. Her texts included phrases like, "Since you're basically my sister now and I know I can count on you." She would reference private conversations with Michael about our finances, revealing that he shared details about my salary and bonuses with her. When I confronted Michael about this invasion of privacy, he dismissed my concerns, saying, "We don't keep secrets in our family." The final months before the breaking point were filled with increasingly direct demands. Jasmine needed $15,000 for a guaranteed investment opportunity. Michael suggested we take out a home equity loan to provide it. When I researched the company and discovered concerning reviews, Michael accused me of trying to sabotage his sister's success. The arguments escalated in intensity, with Michael's anger becoming more volatile, and my fear more pronounced. Still, I held on to hope that we could find a way forward, that the man I married was still in there somewhere beneath the financial pressure and family expectations. I just didn't realize how far things would go before I found the strength to draw a final necessary boundary. The morning that changed everything began like any other Tuesday. I woke early, prepared for an important client presentation that afternoon, and went downstairs to make breakfast. Michael joined me in the kitchen, seemingly in good spirits, as he poured coffee and suggested we eat together before heading to work. These calm moments had become rare, and I welcomed the peaceful start to the day. As we sat at the breakfast table with eggs and toast, Michael casually mentioned that Jasmine had found an incredible opportunity to become a partner in a boutique marketing agency. The investment required was $45,000, but the potential returns were substantial. He explained that Jasmine would need the money by the end of the week to secure her position. "I told her we'd help," he said, stirring sugar into his coffee. "She just needs to use your credit card since mine is close to the limit. She'll pay it back from the profits within 6 months guaranteed." My stomach dropped. $45,000 was a massive sum, more than half of my annual bonus, that I had earmarked for paying down our existing debt. Furthermore, I had researched this particular agency after Jasmine mentioned it previously and discovered they had numerous complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau. Multiple former partners had sued them for fraudulent business practices. I took a deep breath and tried to respond calmly. "Michael, I've looked into this agency, and there are serious red flags. Several people have lost their investments with them. I don't think this is a good idea, and I'm not comfortable putting that amount on my credit card." Michael's expression darkened immediately. "You researched behind my back. Jasmine spent weeks securing this opportunity. Who are you to decide it's not legitimate?" "I'm the person being asked to take on significant debt," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "We already have $20,000 in credit card debt, and the home equity line is nearly maxed out. We can't afford this right now." "You mean you won't afford it?" he snapped. "You got that big promotion, but suddenly you're too good to help family. Jasmine needs this break, and you're trying to ruin it because you've always been jealous of our relationship." The conversation was spiraling into familiar territory, but this time I held firm. This isn't about jealousy, it's about financial responsibility. I won't put my financial security at risk for an investment that shows clear warning signs of being a scam. What happened next occurred so quickly, I barely had time to react. Michael's face contorted with rage. He stood up, gripping his coffee mug so tightly his knuckles whitened. "You selfish bitch," he snarled, and then threw the contents of his mug directly at my face. The pain was immediate and shocking. The coffee had been freshly poured and was scalding hot. I screamed and jumped up, coffee dripping down my face and neck, soaking the front of my white blouse. The burning sensation was intense, particularly around my right cheek and eye. Through the pain and confusion, I heard Michael's voice, somehow both ice-cold and burning with anger. "This is your last chance. Jasmine is coming to the house this evening. Give her your credit card and the jewelry your grandmother left you, or get out. I'm done with your selfishness." He grabbed his laptop bag and stormed out, leaving me alone in the kitchen, shaking and in pain. The front door slammed with such force that a framed photo fell from the wall and shattered on the floor. The symbolic timing wasn't lost on me, even in my shocked state. I stumbled to the sink, splashing cold water on my face to ease the burning. As I looked at my reflection in the kitchen window, I saw the angry red marks blooming across my skin. But more striking was the expression in my eyes. Beyond the pain and shock was something else, something I hadn't seen in myself for years: clarity. In that moment of crisis, my mind became surprisingly calm and focused. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about my safety, my dignity, and my future. The man who had just attacked me wasn't having a bad day or under unusual stress. This was who he had become, or perhaps who he had always been beneath the charming exterior. I stood in the kitchen water, dripping from my face, and made the decision that would change the course of my life. I would not be there when Jasmine arrived. I would not surrender my financial security, family heirlooms, or personal safety to appease Michael's twisted sense of family obligation. I would leave today before he returned. The pain on my face was excruciating, but the years of emotional pain suddenly crystallized into determination. With shaking hands, I reached for my phone and called the one person I knew would help without judgment. Despite Michael's efforts to distance me from her, Rachel had remained a constant, patiently waiting on the periphery of my life for when I might need her. When she answered, I could barely form words through my tears and the physical pain. "Rachel," I managed to say. "I need help." Michael threw hot coffee at me. "I need to leave. Today." Her response was immediate and unquestioning. "I'm on my way. Start packing essentials. Don't worry about the rest right now. You're not alone in this." Those words broke through the last of my hesitation. I wasn't alone. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself to fully recognize what my marriage had become and what I needed to do to reclaim my life. With Rachel on her way, I forced myself to move methodically, despite the shock and pain. First, I needed to treat my burns. In the bathroom, I gently applied cool, wet compresses to my face, neck, and chest where the coffee had scalded me. The right side of my face was already turning an angry red with blisters beginning to form near my cheekbone. Using my phone, I took clear photos of the injuries, making sure to capture the coffee stains on my blouse as well. Something told me documentation would be important. Next, I called my bank. Years of working in finance had taught me that financial security needed to be the first priority in a crisis. I spoke with a customer service representative, explaining that I needed to secure my accounts immediately. I requested new card numbers for my personal credit cards, changed online banking passwords, and placed alerts on all accounts for unusual activity. I also transferred my recent bonus from our joint savings into my individual account. My hands trembled as I made these calls, but each completed action strengthened my resolve. With my financial base secured, I contacted my office. I had an important presentation that afternoon, but this emergency took precedence. My manager Susan responded with unexpected compassion when I briefly explained the situation. "Amanda, your safety comes first," she assured me. "Take whatever time you need. We'll reschedule the client meeting." She even offered company resources, including contact information for the Employee Assistance Program that provided legal referrals and counseling services. By the time Rachel arrived, I had changed clothes and was systematically packing essentials. The burn on my face throbbed painfully, but adrenaline kept me moving. Rachel gasped when she saw my injury, but quickly composed herself and jumped into action. Together, we created a priority list of what needed to be taken immediately. We started with important documents: my birth certificate, passport, social security card, insurance information, and financial records. I retrieved these from the fireproof safe in our home office, along with my grandmother's will that documented the jewelry Michael had demanded I surrender. Next came irreplaceable sentimental items, photo albums from before my marriage family, heirlooms, and a few treasured gifts from my parents. Clothing and personal necessities were easier decisions. I packed enough professional attire for 2 weeks. Casual clothes, essential toiletries, and medications. Looking at my jewelry box, I carefully selected pieces with emotional significance and left behind anything Michael had given me. My wedding ring remained on the bedside table, a small act of finality that brought both pain and relief. Throughout this process, Rachel made several trips to her car, loading my belongings while I continued sorting and packing. We worked quickly, but thoroughly, knowing the window of opportunity was limited. Michael typically came home for lunch around noon, which gave us approximately 3 hours from the time he had left. While gathering my belongings, I discovered financial documents I hadn't seen before, hidden in Michael's desk drawer. Credit card statements showed charges for expensive restaurants and hotels on dates when he claimed to be working late or on business trips. There were also money transfers to Jasmine far exceeding the amounts he had disclosed to me. I added these papers to my collection of important documents, another piece of the puzzle. That was my dissolving marriage. Rachel suggested I contact a lawyer immediately. Using the referral from my company's EAP, I called a family law attorney named Linda Spencer, who specialized in cases involving domestic abuse. To my surprise and relief, Linda offered to meet me that same day, and even suggested having a representative present at the house when Michael returned. Having legal representation there when he discovers you've left creates a barrier, and witness Linda explained during our brief call. It also sends a clear message about how seriously you're taking this situation. The idea of a professional stranger being present when Michael returned with Jasmine provided unexpected comfort. I agreed to Linda's suggestion, and she promised to send her associate Daniel to the house by 4 o'clock. As we finished packing, I took a final walk through the home that had once represented my dreams for the future. The kitchen where we had hosted dinner parties. The living room where we had spent lazy Sunday mornings. The spare bedroom we had planned to eventually turn into a nursery. Each space held memories of both happiness and increasingly tension and fear. In our bedroom, I paused at the framed photo from our wedding day. Michael was beaming at the camera, his arm proudly around my waist. I remembered feeling like the luckiest woman alive that day. Now I understood that leaving was my true good fortune. I left the photo on the dresser, another chapter closed. Rachel watched me with concern as I took one final look around. "Are you having second thoughts?" she asked gently. I touched my burned cheek, the pain a stark reminder of the morning's events. "No," I said with surprising steadiness. "I'm just saying goodbye to the life I thought I had." With my essential belongings packed into Rachel's car, I left a simple note on the kitchen counter. No explanations or accusations, just the business card of my lawyer with instructions to direct all communication through her office. Then I closed the door on my marriage and didn't look back. Rachel's 2-bedroom apartment became my sanctuary that first night. She had prepared her guest room with fresh linens and privacy, understanding my need for both support and space. After helping me settle in, she drove me to an urgent care clinic where a doctor documented and treated my facial burns. The medical professional classified them as second-degree burns and noted potential scarring on my right cheek. She asked directly if the injury was the result of domestic violence, and for the first time, I acknowledged aloud what had happened without minimizing or making excuses. My husband threw hot coffee at my face during an argument about money. I stated my voice stronger than I expected. The doctor provided thorough documentation for my records and recommended I file a police report. The following morning, I met with Linda Spencer at her office downtown. She was a commanding presence with decades of experience handling domestic abuse and high-conflict divorce cases. I brought the photos of my injuries, the medical report, and the financial documents I had discovered. Linda listened attentively, taking detailed notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished recounting the events leading up to the coffee incident, she spoke with calm confidence. "Amanda, what you've experienced is a clear pattern of financial and emotional abuse that escalated to physical violence. We have strong grounds for an emergency protection order, and will file for divorce immediately with requests for financial protection given the evidence of financial abuse. That afternoon, we went to the local police station together. Filing the report was emotionally exhausting, requiring me to recount the details of the assault and the pattern of controlling behavior that preceded it. The officer taking my statement was professional but compassionate, photographing my injuries again for their records. I learned that throwing hot liquid on someone constituted assault and could result in criminal charges. The officer explained the process for obtaining an emergency protection order, which Linda had already begun preparing. By evening, the legal wheels were in motion. The protection order was granted, prohibiting Michael from contacting me directly or coming within 500 feet of me, my workplace, or my temporary residence. Linda's associate Daniel had been at the house when Michael returned with Jasmine as planned. According to Daniel's report to Linda, Michael's reaction progressed from confusion to shock to rage when he found the house partially emptied and a lawyer waiting instead of his wife. "Who the hell are you? Where is Amanda?" Michael had demanded, with Jasmine standing behind him looking equally confused. Daniel had calmly introduced himself as my legal representative and served Michael with the emergency protection order and initial divorce papers. He reported that Michael's face had drained of color as he skimmed the documents, particularly the detailed account of the morning's assault and financial abuse allegations. "This is ridiculous. She's making this up," Michael had shouted while Jasmine began crying dramatically. Daniel maintained his professional demeanor, explaining that all future communication would need to go through legal channels and that Michael was not to contact me directly under any circumstances. After Daniel left, Michael began a bombardment of attempts to reach me. He called my cell phone repeatedly until I blocked his number. He sent emails alternating between angry accusations and desperate pleas, which I forwarded to Linda without reading fully. He even tried reaching me through colleagues, creating a LinkedIn account to send messages after discovering his email was blocked. Each attempt reinforced my decision to leave. Michael's family also joined the pressure campaign. His mother called my parents, spinning a story about me having a mental breakdown and abandoning the marriage without cause. Fortunately, my parents had seen enough concerning behavior from Michael over the years to be skeptical. They contacted me directly, and I finally shared the full truth about my marriage, including photos of my injured face. Their unwavering support brought me to tears and began healing a distance that Michael had strategically created. Jasmine took a different approach, sending a long message to Rachel through social media, portraying herself as a concerned sister-in-law, just trying to help her brother through a difficult time. She claimed there must have been a misunderstanding about the investment opportunity, and suggested my actions were disproportionate to the situation. Rachel didn't respond but forwarded the message to Linda, who added it to the growing file of evidence of harassment. Throughout this chaotic period, I found unexpected strength in standing my ground. Each legal step, from the protection order to the divorce filing, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Linda helped me understand that my financial expertise, which had been used against me in the marriage, was now my greatest asset in securing independence. We documented every unauthorized transaction, every hidden account, and every financial deception to build a case for a fair settlement. Rachel's support was unwavering. She created space for me to process my emotions while maintaining normalcy through shared meals and occasional light conversation. She never questioned my decision or suggested reconciliation, which happened surprisingly often from acquaintances who learned of our separation. "But you seemed like such a perfect couple," they would say, unaware of the reality behind closed doors. Rachel would gently change the subject, or when necessary, firmly defend my privacy. A week after leaving, I discovered that Michael had emptied our joint checking account the day after I left. Linda immediately filed for emergency financial orders, using this action as further evidence of financial misconduct. The judge ruled in our favor, freezing remaining joint assets and requiring full financial disclosure within 10 days. This small victory bolstered my confidence in the legal system and my decision to leave before more damage could be done. As the initial shock began to subside, I allowed myself to fully acknowledge the reality of my situation. I was 32 years old, starting over with only what I could fit in Rachel's car, nursing physical and emotional wounds from a relationship I had believed was loving. Yet alongside the grief and pain was a growing sense of possibility. For the first time in years, my financial decisions were entirely my own. My future uncertain, as it was belonged to me again. The weeks following my departure unfolded in a series of challenges and small victories. I returned to work after a week, finding unexpected comfort in the familiar routines and problems that had clear solutions, unlike the complex emotional landscape I was navigating in my personal life. My colleagues were discreet but supportive, following my lead in not discussing my personal situation while making it clear they were available if needed. The fading burn on my face raised occasional questions, which I answered truthfully but briefly. Finding a new place to live became my first priority. While Rachel was generously accommodating, we both recognized I needed my own space to rebuild. With Linda's help, I secured a court order, allowing me to collect additional belongings from the house while Michael was at work. A police officer accompanied me for safety, standing quietly in the foyer as I gathered more clothes, books, kitchen items I had brought to the marriage, and a few pieces of furniture that had been mine before. The house felt foreign already, as though it belonged to someone else's life. With my salary and savings, I could afford a modest but comfortable one-bedroom apartment in a secure building across town. The moment I signed the lease felt monumental, a concrete step toward independence. Rachel helped me move in and gifted me a doormat reading "Home Sweet Home," a simple gesture that brought unexpected tears. "This is your fresh start," she said, hugging me carefully to avoid my healing burn. "No one gets through that door without your permission." Michael's harassment evolved, but didn't cease. When direct contact failed, he enlisted mutual friends to reach out on his behalf. Some called with genuine concern, unaware they were being used as intermediaries. Others more explicitly carried his messages. He was sorry he was getting therapy. He had fired Jasmine from the marketing agency, where he apparently had connections. I maintained the boundary of no direct communication, redirecting each person to Linda. Some respected this. Others revealed themselves as unsafe connections, who prioritized Michael's redemption narrative over my safety. Jasmine's approach was more aggressive. She began spreading stories among our social circle about my supposed financial irresponsibility and emotional instability. According to her narrative, I had been secretly gambling or had met someone else. When these attempts to damage my reputation gained little traction, she escalated to showing up at my office building, attempting to confront me in the lobby. Security escorted her out, and Linda added this incident to our growing documentation for court. Throughout this period, my support system expanded beyond Rachel. I reconnected with college friends who had gradually disappeared from my life during my marriage. My parents visited my father, visibly struggling to contain his anger, when he saw the healing burn on my face. My mother bringing home cooked meals to stock my freezer. My company's employee assistance program connected me with a therapist specializing in domestic abuse recovery, providing 6 free sessions that proved invaluable. Dr. Kimberly Wilson helped me identify the patterns of financial and emotional abuse that had characterized my marriage. Through our weekly sessions, I began to understand how Michael had systematically isolated me, undermined my confidence, and created dependency, while maintaining the appearance of a supportive husband. Dr. Wilson introduced me to resources like financial abuse support groups and reading materials that helped me contextualize my experience within broader patterns of domestic abuse. Financial abuse is one of the least recognized forms of domestic violence, she explained during one session. Yet it's present in 99% of abusive relationships, and often keeps victims trapped long after they recognize other forms of abuse. The support group she recommended became another cornerstone of my recovery. Meeting other professionals who had experienced similar manipulation helped combat the shame and self-doubt that occasionally overwhelmed me. How could I, a financial analyst, have missed the signs? How could I have allowed my financial autonomy to be compromised so completely? The group provided a space where these questions were met with understanding, rather than judgment where my financial autonomy. Experience was validated, rather than questioned. Legal proceedings continued steadily. Michael initially contested the divorce, demanding reconciliation counseling and minimizing the coffee incident as a momentary lapse in judgment during a stressful discussion. His lawyer portrayed him as a devoted husband, blindsided by an ungrateful wife. This narrative collapsed when Linda presented the medical documentation of my Burns financial records, showing patterns of control and unauthorized transactions and text messages from Michael, demanding I surrender my credit cards and jewelry to his sister. The court ordered a full financial accounting which revealed additional concerning transactions. Michael had been funneling money to a separate account for over a year, accumulating a significant sum while claiming financial hardship at home. He had also co-signed loans for Jasmine that appeared on our credit report, but had never been disclosed to me. These discoveries strengthened my case and resulted in temporary support orders that protected my interests while the divorce proceeded. 3 months after leaving, I experienced my first significant financial victory. The court ruled that Michael was responsible for 70% of our marital debt, recognizing that much of it had been incurred without my knowledge, or for his family's benefit, rather than our household. This ruling lifted an enormous weight, allowing me to develop a realistic plan for financial recovery. Rebuilding my career became another focus. The promotion I had received shortly before leaving Michael now took on new significance. I threw myself into projects volunteering for additional responsibilities and connecting with mentors in the company. My work provided not just financial security, but a sense of competence and control that had been undermined in my marriage. Each successful presentation or completed project rebuilt my professional confidence. Reconnecting with my own family brought unexpected healing. Weekend visits to my parents' home, which Michael had always found reasons to avoid, became regular occurrences. My younger brother Tom, who had always been wary of Michael, drove 6 hours to help me furnish my new apartment. These strengthened family bonds provided a foundation of support I hadn't realized I was missing. 6 months into my new life, I had established routines that brought stability and even moments of joy. Morning runs in the park near my apartment, Sunday phone calls with my parents, monthly dinner with college friends who had rallied around me, weekly therapy sessions that had shifted from crisis management to longer-term healing. My apartment was becoming a home decorated with intention rather than compromise. My finances were gradually recovering, with a clear debt repayment plan and renewed savings goals. There were still difficult days, nightmares about the assault, moments of doubt about the future, unexpected triggers that brought memories flooding back. But these challenges no longer defined my life. They were part of my recovery journey, signposts of healing, rather than obstacles to it. With each passing week, I recognized more of myself returning stronger and wiser than before. 6 months after that fateful morning when Michael threw coffee at my face, my divorce was finalized. The proceedings had been contentious, but ultimately successful from my perspective. The financial settlement reflected the court's recognition of the financial abuse that had characterized our marriage. I received a fair division of assets, protection from debts Michael had incurred without my knowledge, and a clean break that allowed me to move forward without ongoing financial entanglements. The most difficult part had been facing Michael in court for the final hearing. Seeing him across the courtroom dressed impeccably and maintaining a facade of injured innocence momentarily transported me back to those years of manipulation. But when I took the stand and spoke my truth clearly, and without apology, I reclaimed my narrative. The judge's ruling validated my experience, formally acknowledging the financial and emotional abuse as factors in the settlement terms. Physical healing progressed alongside legal resolution. The burn on my face had healed, leaving only a faint discoloration near my right cheekbone that could be covered with makeup if I chose. Some mornings I deliberately left it visible, a reminder not of victimhood but of survival, and the strength it took to leave. My therapist suggested this perspective shift was significant, representing my ability to integrate the experience into my life story, without being defined by it. Financial independence once compromised was now fully restored. I had established new accounts, rebuilt my credit score, and created a comprehensive financial plan that included emergency savings and retirement contributions. The skills that had advanced my career now served my personal financial recovery. Each month, as I reviewed my budget and savings progress, I felt a sense of accomplishment and security that extended beyond numbers. My career continued to flourish. The focus and dedication I brought to my work after leaving Michael resulted in another promotion this time, to team leader with 5 analysts reporting to me. The responsibility was significant, but energizing. I found satisfaction in mentoring younger team members, particularly women, beginning their financial careers. Without explicitly sharing my story, I emphasized the importance of maintaining financial literacy and independence, regardless of relationship status. My relationship with family and friends deepened as barriers created during my marriage dissolved. Weekend visits with my parents became monthly traditions. My brother Tom and I started a tradition of attending baseball games together, something Michael had always dismissed as boring. Rachel remained my closest confidant, but my circle expanded to include both old friends who had been edged out of my life and new connections made through work and support groups. Perhaps the most profound healing came through helping others. 6 months after my divorce was finalized, I began volunteering with a nonprofit organization, providing financial literacy education to domestic violence survivors. Twice monthly, I taught basics of budgeting, credit repair, and financial planning to women rebuilding their lives after abuse. Sharing my professional knowledge in service of others' recovery gave purpose to my experience and connected me to a community of survivors and advocates. Through this volunteer work, I gained deeper insights about recognizing warning signs of financial abuse. The patterns were remarkably consistent across educational and socioeconomic backgrounds. Isolation from financial information, restricted access to funds, forced dependency, exploitation of resources, sabotage of career opportunities. I created a workshop specifically addressing these red flags, helping participants identify concerning behaviors before they escalated to complete financial control. The importance of financial independence became my mantra, both personally and in my volunteer work. I understood now that economic self-sufficiency wasn't just about paying bills, but about having options, agency, and safety. Financial dependence had kept me in an abusive relationship longer than I would have stayed, had I maintained complete awareness and control of my resources. This lesson shaped my approach to both money and relationships moving forward. Healing also meant recognizing where I needed to forgive myself. In therapy, I worked through feelings of shame and self-recrimination for not recognizing the abuse sooner, for making excuses for Michael's behavior, for allowing financial boundaries to be violated repeatedly. Dr. Wilson helped me understand how abusive patterns develop gradually with each boundary crossing, paving the way for the next. The most insidious aspect of abuse is how it normalizes abnormal behavior over time, she explained. Your leaving when you did shows tremendous courage and self-preservation. This self-forgiveness did not extend to removing boundaries. Michael made several attempts at reconciliation after the divorce was finalized, sending letters expressing remorse and claiming therapy had transformed him. Linda advised against direct response, and I maintained the no-contact boundary that had protected my recovery. I came to understand that forgiveness was about my healing, not about restoring relationship with someone who had demonstrated such fundamental disrespect for my well-being. As the 1-year anniversary of my departure approached, I spent a weekend reflecting on the transformation of my life. The woman who had shakily packed essentials into her friend's car, face burning from hot coffee and heart aching from betrayal, seemed distant now. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionately self-protective. The crisis that could have destroyed me instead revealed depths of resilience I hadn't known I possessed. My understanding of strength underwent a profound shift through this experience. I had once equated strength with endurance, with trying harder and sacrificing more to make a relationship work. Now I recognize that true strength sometimes meant walking away, setting boundaries, and prioritizing self-preservation. Strength wasn't the absence of vulnerability, but the courage to acknowledge it and take necessary action despite fear and uncertainty. The future still held questions. Would I trust enough to build a new relationship someday? How would this experience influence my approach to intimacy and partnership? I had no definitive answers, only a commitment to honor my own boundaries and well-being. Whatever path unfolded. For now, I found contentment in independence, in friendships, in meaningful work, and in the simple joy of making decisions based solely on my own values and priorities. One evening, sitting on the small balcony of my apartment watching the sunset, I felt a sense of peace that had once seemed unimaginable. The journey from that terrible morning to this moment of tranquility had been arduous but necessary. I had not merely survived but reclaimed my life and redirected it toward purpose and authenticity. If you've stayed with me through this story, I want to thank you for witnessing my journey. Has my experience resonated with you or someone you know? The patterns of financial and emotional abuse can be difficult to recognize when you're in them. Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story helped you understand these dynamics better, consider subscribing and sharing it with others who might benefit. No one should face these challenges alone, and sometimes the first step toward freedom is simply recognizing that what you're experiencing isn't normal or acceptable. Like and subscribe if you believe in the power of sharing stories that might help others find their own path to healing and independence. Remember, your financial and emotional well-being matters, and you deserve relationships that honor rather than undermine them.